you very much. Welcome to the Open World Forum TV show. We are talking about open source, of course, and we are talking with about open source with James Utzschneider from Microsoft.
Hello.
Good morning. You're a very top guy at Microsoft because you have perhaps the most difficult job working about all the worldwide strategy about open source.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun because there's a great deal of technology that we get to work with as part of my role.
2 or 3 years ago, it was impossible to imagine to see Microsoft in an open source congress or exhibition. What's new?
I agree. Well, the most important thing is that we've changed as a company and we've become more open. And that's demonstrated by just the way we play well with others in the industry in terms of our investment in standards, interoperability, and integration with open source. The way we listen to our customers who want to deploy solutions that use Microsoft and use open source without hearing a lot about religion and dogma. And as we make this move to the cloud, we do so in an open manner.
What is the difference from a consumer point of view? When I use Windows or Office, everything, I didn't see any change.
Well, it's subtle, but it's definitely there. For instance, if you're someone who's bought an iPad and you open up an email and there's a Word or a PowerPoint attachment, you open it and it looks really good. That's because Microsoft supports an ISO standard called OpenXML, and Apple supports that standard. And to the consumer, it simply means that they get stuff to work the way they want it to.
What is the difference for Microsoft from an internal point of view? Did you begin to use open source software, for example, for your development or your internal usage?
Well, personally, I've been at Microsoft 15 years. I published my own open source project for the first time in 1997. And there's been many, many groups at Microsoft who have been doing work around standards and interop and open source for well over a decade. And in fact, if you look at the body of work, and people look at it and say, my goodness, I had no idea that Microsoft had changed so much and become so open.
Yeah. In every market, I think that we need a bad guy. A couple of years ago, it was Microsoft the bad guy. Who is the bad guy of the open source today if you are coming to the open source? Is it Google?
You know, I'll leave that to people who feel it's important to name bad guys as part of this. What customers actually don't want anymore is they don't want good guys versus bad guys. They can't afford it. They just want things to work. And it may be fun for people in the industry to gang up on a particular company, but in reality, given the economy, given IT budgets, the days of good guys versus bad guys, I think, are over, and we should keep those in the movies.
Yeah. What will it change for a company to see Microsoft coming to the open source? Does it mean that my software will change, that I will have the ability to modify something? What is the difference for a company?
It depends on what type of company. If you're an IT vendor or an ISV, you can have your open source products either run on Windows or Azure or integrate with Microsoft quite easily. If you run an open source community, you'll have a better opportunity for gateways to them. So you may have seen the announcement that we did with WordPress on Monday. Microsoft has 30 million people who write blogs on Windows Live Spaces, and we're moving those people over to WordPress. So when have you ever heard of a commercial software company moving 30 million of their best customers over to an open source platform? I don't think it's been done before, and it's another example of how we've changed as a company.
Do you think that in a couple of years we can see open source software sold by Microsoft?
You can do that today. So you can go to Microsoft.com/web and you can download up to 50 different open source applications from the Microsoft website, including WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and Moodle. And these, you could just install them with 1 or 2 clicks. And 4 million people have downloaded open source software from Microsoft.com's website since January.
And what will be the next move? What are you working on today about open source?
What I'm here talking to the audience about is the move we're making to the cloud. And in our Windows Azure platform, today, you can write applications in Java and Ruby and Eclipse and PHP and run them in Microsoft's data centers. So a few years ago, who would have thought Microsoft would let open source into our data centers to run? And you'll just be seeing more and more announcements, more and more demonstrations of interoperability and support for standards as we move to the cloud. We are so committed to being open in this move to the cloud that we just want to talk about it with lots of people.
So it means, in conclusion, that we can count on Microsoft for all the edition of open source exhibition and things. You will always be there.
Well, the funny thing is, the organizers of this conference called Open Innovation, Open Enterprise, and Open Society, they wouldn't let Microsoft be a sponsor.
Why?
Because they're not really open, I guess. I'm not sure, but maybe someday they'll be open enough to let Microsoft be a sponsor, because we would love to have our logo up there on this wall, but they wouldn't let us.
You see, it's a story of a bad guy.
Yeah, so maybe
you're always
the
a bad guy.
conference is the bad guy now. I don't know. But we love the open source people.
Yeah.
We love working with the community, and we're looking forward to the day when our logo can be up there right next to other open source companies like Oracle and HP.
We'll see next year, perhaps.
Yes, we're quite hopeful. We'll be here next year.
Thank you very much, James. You are responsible of all open source worldwide strategy for Microsoft. So thank you very much for coming. It was
You're
very
welcome.
interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you soon on another TV show for the Open World Forum.